I'm going to provide you all the recording of this video, okay, in the Google Classroom. The recording will be available. So you can access this class whenever you feel like. And please keep your mobile phones in silent mode during the class, okay? And of course your mics are switched off. But I can't see any on of you, by the way. I don't know your faces till now. Probably you will be like this throughout the semester, I don't know. So I'll be talking to some K, M, R, S, H. I'll be talking to those alphabets. So basic concepts in cultural studies too is a course which is a little more advanced than the previous courses, and I will be mostly dealing with issues such as globalization. I'll be teaching issues such as popular culture, and we will also deal with a few eminent critiques of our times, people such as Arjun Appadurai. We will pick up a few critics from Frankfurt School. Mm. So, all in all, this is a course which will go a little more deeper into the discipline of cultural studies. But still, the course is called Basics. But what the course will aim to provide all of you is a vantage point of critical thinking from the disciplinary perspective, cultural studies perspective. There will also be a lot of media and cultural studies approach in this semester. Not necessarily media reviewing or critiquing media, but mostly media theories, which are important for cultural studies courses. As we understand, popular culture has a lot to do with today media culture. Okay, so these are some of the broad themes and areas that I'll be touching upon during this semester. And since it's a pass course for all of you, isn't it? So we all I won't be giving you too many reading materials, but those are also important. And I have decided I won't be taking live classes every day. So most of the time they will be recorded classes. Maybe once in 2 weeks I'll meet you live, or whenever you people feel like that I need to take a live class. Then only when you need to clear doubts. And of course the WhatsApp forum is particularly there for clearing all your doubts on anything that you would want to discuss. Okay, so that's how we will go forward. By today evening or tomorrow morning, I will also provide you with a course handout, which will provide you with all the details about the course. How am I going to phase out the whole semester? Uh, it's tough. I understand for all of you in this time to be sitting at home and concentrating on classes, but we have no other way. Isn't it? So tell me, you can all switch on your mics for a second, and we can have first an interactive, small interactive session where I just want to know how much of cultural studies do you remember, how much of it have you studied in the previous semesters. Can you start one by one? Let's hear out. Yes, who wants to start? Okay, let me start. Let me call out names, then you can talk. Anubhav, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Anubhav, are you there? Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
what do you remember about cultural studies? Hello.
So it was basically an analysis of uh, contemporary culture
Mm.
in terms of the various conflicts and
Okay.
contingencies.
So, do you remember any of the authors and critics that we introduced to you?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you remember anybody, any author or critic that was introduced to you in the class?
Um,
You don't remember?
Stuart Hall. I remember
Okay.
Stuart Hall.
Okay. Thank you, Anubhav. Thank you. Himashri,
Yes, sir.
are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What do you remember from this last semester?
Sir, I am new to this course.
Okay, so
It's my
last time what
first
was
time.
the course that you took?
Sociology,
Sociology, and there must be some other course.
mass communication,
Okay, so this time you have cultural studies
mass
and
communication and cultural studies.
oh, so you left out sociology for a change.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you seem to be more interested in mass communication.
Yes, sir.
Uh, okay, thank you. Who is there? Shubhangi, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell me something about the last semester. What do you
Sir,
remember?
during last semester, we studied about culture and folklore, traditional beliefs and functions of folklore.
Okay, okay. So mostly it was a folklore class.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Shubhangi. Rajeshi,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So throw some light on what you remember.
We have done two papers as of yet. The first one was Introduction to Cultural Studies one, and then we did Folklore Studies last semester.
Hmm.
Uh, the first paper was an introductory paper, of course. We discussed what cultural studies actually is,
Hmm.
the various definitions of it. Then we moved on to simplistic ideas like what signs are, what other means, what
Hmm.
discursive analysis and all this. Then some other
Discourse
also went
analysis?
on. Just the definition of it,
Okay,
nothing
okay.
else.
Uh, so what do you
So
expect from this semester?
maybe a more in-depth study of the same things, or maybe some new concepts being introduced to us.
Okay,
I think
thank
the,
you.
I think the
Thank.
latter would be
Huh.
more appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh. Sneha, are you there? Sneha, Sneha. Okay, she seems to be asleep. Rudrakshi, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, do you remember anything from the first sem or the second sem?
So last semester we study about the folklore. It's
Hmm.
as an academic discipline, its features, its characteristics and purpose.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rudrakshi. Mansum is around.
Yes, sir.
So, tell us something what you remember.
So we learned about various characteristics, classifications of folklore, and how it functions.
Can you take the mic closer to your mouth? Yeah. Yes.
The different characteristics, classifications, and how it functions.
Okay, there is some issue with your mic, Mansum. We'll come back to you later. Aditya?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, tell me, what do you remember?
So last semester we studied about folklore and what should be considered folklore and what should not be.
Okay.
What are its characteristics?
Okay. Akanksha?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, you
For
remember
last
anything from
semester,
the first semester? Do you remember anything?
yes, first semester, uh, we had to read about culture and how it creates and transforms individual experiences, including everyday life, social relations, and etc.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Tandrali?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. So, throw some
Good
light.
morning, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in the last semester, we um, studied about folklore, its characteristics, purpose,
Hmm.
what is the meaning of cultural studies, meaning of folklore,
Hmm.
and how it is important in our daily life, and
Hmm.
what use it has in our daily lives,
Okay.
yeah, and similarities.
Okay. Thank you, Dhanjali. Ninad.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good morning and tell us.
Good morning, sir. Sir, about the first and second semesters,
Yeah.
like in first semester, we mainly learned the basics of what is cultural studies and what are its aims and how it came into being, its history and everything. And we also
Okay.
learned about some
Okay.
so
About some
theories as well, such as there was the encoding decoding theory of Stuart Hall.
Okay.
And
that was first sem or second sem?
I think first sem, sir.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Nina.
And in the, okay. Okay, sir.
Okay. I'll go to where is Kriti? Kriti is around. She has left. Who is left out? Jharna, are you there? Jharna? Jharna, can you unmute your mic? Okay, I think she is having some trouble. Ananya, you have just joined us. Hello?
Sir,
Yeah, Ananya,
yeah.
so can you throw some light what you remember from the last 2 semesters of cultural studies?
In the last semester, we learned about anti-texts and about the features of folklore, characteristics of folklore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jharna, are you here now? Thank you, Ananya. Jharna, are you here now? Can you hear us? Okay, I think we have lost 2 people already again. Okay. Okay, so this was just refreshing our minds with what we have been doing over the last 2 semesters. So third semester will open us, will open up the landscape a little bit more. We will go back to learning a few more things. We will make it a little more critical, okay, and we'll widen the scope of cultural studies. We'll take in a few other disciplines, and as you all have understood from your first semester, if I am not mistaken, that how cultural studies is a subject which takes into other disciplines, which borrows methodologies from other disciplines as well, interdisciplinary in nature. So we borrow liberally from disciplines such as let's say anthropology, political science, sociology, history, for example. And some of you would have had some of these subjects in your 10+2, isn't it? Some of you would have had these subjects. And so how cultural studies as a subject derives its essence from a multidisciplinary angle. So we in cultural studies, for example, let's give you an example. For example, you are English students, and for English students today, literature students, cultural studies approach to studying literature is one of the biggest areas of concern today. So people are doing a lot of literature research from the vantage point of culture itself. Let's say me, if you consider me, for example, I haven't introduced myself, isn't it? So I am a cultural studies teacher in essence, but my whole training has been in the area of media studies. So I am basically from mass communication and journalism. Okay, so how then my disciplinary training in a different discipline leads me to the area of cultural studies? You understand, because we borrow disciplinary ideas from other disciplines and enrich cultural studies. So cultural studies does not have these strict disciplinary boundaries. Okay, so this most disciplines would be very rigid in their disciplinary boundaries, so they won't. That's why we have disciplines in the first place, isn't it? That's why when I study history, I don't study pol science. When I study pol science, I do study pol science. So I don't breach disciplinary boundaries. I don't go into the domain of any other subject, and that's why subjects exist. So what happens in cultural studies is that we are constantly oscillating. This cultural studies as a subject provides us with the freedom to transgress these boundary issues. Now, how does it help the subject? One, it provides for a multidisciplinary approach to understanding issues or social concerns, how you might call it. So what happens is, your discipline does not provide you, let's say your discipline does not provide you with the tools of studying a particular social issue. Does not mean that you won't study this. What you do is, in cultural studies, you will liberally take methodologies from other disciplines to study it. Let's say if I have to today study something in the, and you say a lot of research is being done in the field of visual culture today, isn't it? Our lives have become visually very rich today. We are constantly reading visual literature. Let's say our lives on Instagram, our lives on Facebook, our lives on YouTube. So we are a visually interacting species now. We are no longer reading literature as in text. So we are mostly into cultural texts today, texts which are beyond the normative understanding of text. So today, let's say our Instagram is a very important way of communicating between two individuals. TikTok is a very important means of communicating between societies. You understand the concepts of viral videos and names and whatnot. So let's say if I have to study, if I have to understand this issue, if I have to go in depth of this issue and understanding this particular area of concern, some of the disciplines will find itself bound by disciplinary boundaries. They won't be able to, because you see, understanding visual medium is a very, very new area of concern. And thus what happens is, I have to then borrow methodologies from other disciplines to study this phenomenon. So what would I do? I would fall back upon, let's say, a media studies perspectives on understanding pictures and videos. I would, let's say, borrow from disciplines such as visual anthropology. So are you getting the point? So as a person, as a researcher, as a person in academics, cultural studies provides me with the options and tools to borrow liberally from other disciplines and then study this. So social phenomena becomes anything that you put in front of a cultural studies person can be studied, because we don't have those disciplinary boundaries. So I can also have a historical approach, even though I'm not in history. Are you getting the point? Let's say, I'll give you a small example. Now, all along you have studied history and you have understood history is the lives of important people. History has always been taught to you from the perspective of the elite few. So you would have understood history from the lives of the kings and the queens, and that's how history has been taught to us. But if you notice the modern histories that are being written, popular histories that are being written, you'll notice somebody is working on the history of buildings, right? Somebody is working on the history of railways, for example, history of telegraph, for example, or let's say the history of if I'm doing, let's say, something called urban history, I'm trying to do a history of the clubs in the localities. Let's say I'm studying the history of the tea gardens in Assam, let's say. So you see, this kind of histories, let's say the history of old buildings in Tezpur town. So Tezpur town is quite an old town, and I'm interested in the history of this old buildings. And if you go to the Tezpur town, you'll remember there are many buildings which have dates which are very old. Some buildings are 1860s, 1880s, and you find them in the town. Now this kind of histories is a new approach to history. Okay, this kind of history wasn't done earlier. This kind of history is history which you haven't been taught in school. Now these are alternate histories. It's a new historicism. These are histories which deal with the idea of popular. Okay, it's almost like a pop history. Today you are doing histories of genes. Today you are doing histories of vaccines. Today we are doing, for example, when the COVID issues was coming up, we were again interested in the history of disease, history of infectious disease. These were histories which weren't done earlier. These are histories which have popped up very recently, last 100 years or so. So this kind of issues can be easily dealt with by a cultural studies approach to understanding history. Okay. Have all of you heard of this word called subaltern? Has anybody heard of this word called subaltern?
Yes,
Anybody? Yeah? Yeah.
No, sir.
Rajesh
we
says,
have.
uh,
We
yes.
did use this word. It was very briefly taught to us.
When,
Basic,
where?
for first semester, sir.
In cultural studies or some other discipline?
Cultural studies. We did we spoke we discussed very briefly regarding subaltern studies.
Yes. Okay. Great. So I'll also briefly touch, but I will introduce this term later in the semester properly. Today I'm just giving you a roundup of what I'm going to. How can we deal with these issues? So you see, so the new history that I'm talking about gives us new approaches to understanding ideas that were never taught in the normative understanding of history, isn't it? So your histories would have been very different. British history, let's say, Mughal history, or a Mauryan history. So all those would form our histories, and never would you have imagined that history of infectious disease could be taught in a history classroom, or history of let's say history of the metro train in India can be a history, isn't it? There can't be history. The history of railways in Northeast can be history. It's very difficult to understand in that traditional understanding of history. Subaltern history is also something like that, which we'll introduce, as I said. Subalternity, if you have not been introduced, we'll come back later. But let's say it's a very different way of understanding history. It's a new approach to understanding history. It was done by a few historians, South Asian historians called Ranajit Guha, Gayatri Chakravarti. Now, Gayatri Chakravarti belonged to literature, Ranajit was from history, and they all got together to make something called subaltern history. Basically, it talked about the people who did not have the right to voice, the people who did not have voices in society, people who were not able to write their own histories. Okay, so those were the people who were known as subaltern, people who could not voice, did not have a voice, did not speak, did not matter in society. So all your histories which would deal with, let's say, the lives of Indian peasants during British rule would be a perfect example of a subaltern history. Okay, now this is, so when you read about a British history, when you read about colonial history, for example, you will read about Gandhi, you'll read about Nehru, you'll read about the big leaders, or you'll read about the Britishers themselves. You'll read about Macaulay's and Lord Irvine's and Simon Commission, but you will never ever hear about. Very rarely you will come across maybe a reference here and there about the peasant revolution, let's say. Okay, but it's subaltern history that talks about this peasants revolution in deep, because it's trying to give a voice to the voiceless. It does not talk about the peasant revolution from the angle of the Gandhi or the Nehru. So let's say how our normal histories would have taught it in school. Gandhi went to Bihar in 1920 and gave a lecture speech to the peasants, and telling them that they were the forebearers of the Indian independence movement. They are the ones who supply food to us so that we can fight the British. That's it. That's the only reference to peasants and the peasant revolution. There is nothing more in history. But subaltern history tries to correct those wrongs. So it would talk history from the perspective of that peasant revolution itself. So there were, so we'll come back to subaltern later. So some of these cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary ideas have been liberally borrowed by cultural studies classrooms to open up this whole discipline. So the scope of the discipline widens. So we are then exposed to a wide variety of disciplinary ideas. So our scope, you see, automatically widens. We can then study a lot of things that you can normally not study. For example, let's say if I pick up literature for a moment, and you all are literature students. See, not many years ago would a Harry Potter text be a syllabus in a literature. Some universities today have it. Most universities still don't. They don't look upon, let's say, Harry Potter as a literature. Would they look upon Game of Thrones as literature? You guess. Will it be looked upon as literature? What do you think? Anybody?
In time, maybe.
Ah,
Hopefully, in time.
hopefully in time. Hopefully. So that hopefully that you say, maybe 50 years down the line, like Harry Potter might be considered as a classic. I don't know about it, but the point that I'm making is today it's not considered, and we are beyond. We are past Harry Potter for a long time now. Harry Potter happened 10, 20 years back, isn't it? It's almost a decade back now, and so this sort of popular literature, if you can't study in a literature department, let's say, if it's not part of the syllabus, so why do you study it? So that is the point, that you require cultural studies methodology to study. It's not that you can't study then Harry Potter as a text. It's not that you can't study Game of Thrones or whatever, isn't it? So to understand literature in that, so cultural studies has gone beyond Shakespeare. We are no longer interested in Shakespeare at all. We are no longer interested in Wordsworth and Eliot and all. So we are slowly widening the disciplinary boundaries. So what cannot be done in other normative disciplines, we can do it in cultural studies. So that is one of the important ideas that we will begin this semester with. So what we would do is, in this semester, we would pick up topics that can be studied in any classroom around the world in any subject. Yet you will notice how in cultural studies, when we deal with these topics, there will be a difference in the way in which we look at it. The first topic that I will begin my next class will be the concept of globalization. Now, globalization is a term that I'm sure you all have used throughout your life, in school, in high school, in your 10 plus 2s, and I'm sure you still use this term very often. And today's world is the best example of a globalized world, isn't it? So all of you would be aware of this term and would have come across, even if you are not sure theoretically or definition wise what exactly globalization means. But globalization is a concept that can be talked about in a sociology classroom. Globalization is a concept that can be talked about, let's say, in a economics classroom. Anybody from economics here who had economics in 10 plus 2? Anybody?
I had.
Yes, Himashri, right?
Sir, I
Yes,
had.
sir.
Okay, Kandrali also had.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so have you heard of this word globalization in your classrooms, both of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
globalization is a term which can also be used in the economics classroom, which is used in economics classroom, and most of the time is an economic idea. Globalization is a term that was used in history a lot, but in other words, the words that would be used in place of, in lieu of globalization. So colonialism itself, which I just mentioned a few minutes back, would be one of the terms that was used for globalization, isn't it? Capitalism, for example, is itself a form of globalization. So globalization as a term has been used multifariously across disciplines, a very important term, by the way. And we are also interested in the word globalization in cultural studies. Many people argue, for example, that globalization has led us to this pandemic today. Okay, many people argue it's the human greed that has led us to this pandemic today. Now, all of these ideas come from our original view of what globalization is. Globalization, according to many of you, would be, let's say, I don't know what you feel, but I'm sure most of you would have understood globalization as going from one place to another, isn't it? Is that one way of understanding globalization? What do you think, all of you? Yes. Going from one place to another.
In a very primitive way, sir. Yes, that would be a very
Yeah.
primitive definition of globalization.
Yeah. What other definition do you think could be better suited?
Like the movement of people and their resulting how do you call it, cultures and stuff like that.
Okay. So you are sticking still to movement of people, right? And that's true in a sense. Movement of people constitutes what we call globalization. International air travel, for example, is a very important reason of why globalization takes place actually in the first place, isn't it? Let's say your IPL is happening in UAE, isn't it? So is that a example of globalization, Nina?
You could say so in a way.
Okay. Tandrali says what? Yes, Tandrali. Exchange of ideas, cultures, and comments. So how does exchange of ideas happen, Tandrali? Can you talk for a moment? Yeah. Tandrali? Okay. Okay. So her mic is not working. Okay. That's fine. So she is saying exchange of ideas, cultures, and commodities. Right, absolutely right. When we say ideas, so in an economics classroom, for example, when if I take this definition from Tandrali for a moment, when she is saying ideas, cultures, an economics person would be interested in the last one, commodities, right? In an economics classroom, we will understand globalization as the exchange of directly commodities, and commodities would form a bulk of our understanding of globalization. Let's say everything that we buy, most of it are globalized products. So any phone that is there in your hand would have, let's say, the chip from somewhere else, the camera from somewhere else, and manufactured in China, and it's a perfect example of a globalization economy. So there are many ways of understanding uh, understanding these concepts. But what are we interested in a cultural studies classroom, which I'm going to again talk in the next class? But we are interested in the whole gamut of these ideas. Beginning, so what happens is, as I said, I will widen up the discipline of cultural studies for you. I'm also interested in what the people in economics are saying. Okay, yet at the same time, I'm interested, but I'll also critique that understanding of globalization. So I will accept that exchange of commodities as in economics classroom is important to globalization, but I will also critique the idea, does only exchanging commodities result in globalization, or does it only constitute that idea of globalization, or globalization is something bigger than this, or globalization is something completely different? So I need to critique all of those concepts that are there around. Does globalization touch parts of our life where we think it does not? So let's say, is my cinema a globalized product, commodity? Is my sports a globalized commodity? Is my food a globalized commodity? Is my culture, which Tandrali just pointed, is my culture a globalized commodity? Okay, is my morality, the morality that I have, a globalized commodity? Is my romance, so the romance that happens in movies, in real life, so is my romance a globalized commodity? So see, I'm slowly from economics, I'm going deeper and deeper. So is the philosophy of my life a globalized commodity? Is my fandom a globalized commodity? Is my celebrity a globalized commodity? Are you getting the point? So I'm going to critique all of those concepts when I am touching upon globalization. Many of you must be, I just noticed last week Dynamite released, isn't it? How many of you follow BTS? Anybody fan groups here? None of you?
Yes, sir.
Now Sneha can be heard. See, you are the only one in the class. So is that, of course, BTS is a globalized phenomenon, and how many views, Neha, now for Dynamite?
Sir, I think it crossed 154 million something.
Within 1 week or 4 days now? 1 week probably, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the perfect example of a, we understand it, we know without reason that this is globalization. We know this. But how? That's something open to our analysis. Yeah. Yeah, Anuran is asking Dynamite, what is that, sir? So you please contact them for that. Okay, Sneha can teach you about Dynamite. Okay, so pop culture has been a very important, if you remember, there has been a lot of, for example, in our times, there used to be, you see, Michael Jackson and so many other singers who came and they became sensations overnight. We did not have the luxury of YouTube then, we did not have the luxury of social media then, but still the globalization was happening. So globalization is not hostage to social media. Of course, it might have increased fan following. That's a different aspect, but globalization is not then that we can understand now is not only hostage to the idea of social media. Because if at all fandom and celebrity is hostage to social media, we also know that there are micro celebrities and social influencers on social media, isn't it? Any one of you who knows any micro celebrity who is in your neighborhood or in your class, or social influencer who is a localite? Anybody knows somebody in your class who is doing that? Some beauty bloggers and all? Anybody who does that in this classroom? No? Nobody? But you know, right? What we call as micro celebrities. You have heard of it? Anybody? No?
Yes, sir. Influencer.
Influencers. You've heard of influencers, right? How many of you, let's say, follow PewDiePie? Or has heard about him at least?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I follow PewDiePie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and anybody
Yes,
who is
sir.
localite that you follow? Localites? Any local influencer or micro blogger that you know of? Nobody? None? From Guwahati or Dibrugarh or Jorhat?
Yes, sir, I know a few.
Yeah, we have a lot of beauty vloggers actually and travel bloggers in Northeast, isn't it? Yeah, but the whole economy thing is down now, so travel bloggers are finding it difficult. They are shifting to other bloggings now. My last class, actually last semester, had 2 vloggers in the same class, and who had 40. One of them had 40,000 following. So 40,000 for a small classroom student is a big thing. You understand that kind of a following? So social influencer in a small localized manner. Globalization has provided us with a lot of such local celebrity, local fandom, such phenomenons which was unheard of quite a few years back. So it's not only BTS or those kind of fandom that is available in today's world. But what does globalization do is important to us. How does globalization affect us is important to us, and what constitutes globalization is important to our understanding. Now this will be the initial part of my classes the next week. After that I will go into concepts such as let's say I'll go into concepts such as understanding globalization in the Indian context. Okay, so I'll bring it down to India, and I'll try to use this example of as a theoretical construct of globalization and try to understand some of the phenomena that we see in Indian society today. How are they an effect of the globalization that we study. Just to throw a hint to all of you, how, let's say, have you all, do you all go to the theaters, not during this time, but you have gone to theaters and watched movies, right? At some point in
Yes,
your
sir.
life? Yeah, you have done that. So how, let's say, multiplex, for example, is a construct, and we go to multiplex to watch our movies before this, and after this again we watch. How this is a construct of a process of globalization. So I'm going to bring the theory and then replicate that idea to a phenomenon, and the phenomenon is a multiplex. You understand? And I will locate the multiplex surrounding the whole process of globalization. So I will prove to you how the viewing, watching experience of a movie, how the movie experience and the movie going experience is a byproduct of a globalized world. Okay, how our attempts at watching a movie is not untouched. The attempt itself, I'm not talking about, by the way, just make it a point to differentiate. I'm not talking about the movie per se, but the experience of watching the film itself is a byproduct of the globalized forces. And I will introduce multiplex in that next class. So that is the whole idea of me. So what I'm doing in this semester is I'm introducing such concepts, and then I will try to connect it to some phenomenon so that it becomes clear to you how do you then use cultural studies to study, to research, to go beyond then from the classroom to the field. Because after all, at a certain point in your life, and today you are in the second year of your course, you'll realize that I need to get out of my classroom teaching and learning. I need to go out and use my theoretical ideas into necessarily field-based ideas. How do I study the world around me? And nothing better than to start off with globalization. And then after this, I will move forward into the realm of which is very close to our hearts, your hearts, social media, our understanding of social media. So I will use the basic, I'll start from the beginning of the construct of social media. I'll look at the initial years of how social media work, and then I'll go into how into the concepts of followers and activists in social media. Many of you are very active in social media, and I'll look at this concept of activism in social media. And then I'll proceed towards the concepts of the visual culture in social media. Okay, how the visual is a very important part of our everyday existence. Okay. In fact, if you consider just for a moment this classroom space as a social media, and it indeed is a social media space, by the way. So our classrooms have now evolved from a physical classroom construct to a social media experience. Are you noticing this? Of course, you all have learned the etiquettes. I don't know how so fast. You all have learned the etiquettes of this classroom space. Like you are switching off your microphone when you speak, you are again switching it on, and you are not talking when I'm talking, and all of those. And you see, it's such a quick time. It's hardly a few months that you are doing online classes, and we have identified some social etiquettes with this sort of a media, the classroom media. I can also consider this classroom media to be a perfect example of a social media, because it, after all, is providing us with a social experience of getting together and speaking to one else. Okay, and of course there is also the viewing angle to it, where we watch each other, where we talk to each other. So this next phase of classes I'll be talking about social media, the initial days of social media. I'll talk about, oh, okay, I missed out. I'll talk about activism, and I'll also talk about a concept called citizenship in social media. So I'll be talking about the concept of, so I'll bring in a little bit of political science in those classes. Are you getting the point? So this is how the semester will go ahead. It will have a lot of this semester we'll have a lot of studying of social phenomena, and there will be a lot of assignments to you as well, which will where you can yourself do some study on social phenomena using some of these theoretical constructs that I will throw at you during the course of the semester. I'll upload materials in the Google Classroom constantly every week, and this will be for your readings as well as some YouTube videos. What I expect is, please, because there is no way for me to understand whether you have read or not, so I can't help with that. I cannot force you to read, remember. So it's up to you to finish your assignments and readings, because if you come to the recording without any reading, you will be swimming all along. So please do your readings of the materials. I'll upload a material by today or tomorrow morning, and please do the initial readings and come back prepared in the class next week. And probably I'll have a recording class next week. And you have any doubts, you will get back to me on WhatsApp. And the evaluation plan for this semester is going to be like this. I am sure you have been told by the other teachers that there will be 3 tests of 15 marks each, and there will be a end semester exam, which I am not sure how many marks, but hardly 30 marks probably, not more than that, or 25 marks. So this whole semester will be, I think, of 90 marks or 80 marks, something like that for you. So the first 3 assignments of 15 marks each, all will be conducted online, the plan as of now. So online, how would I take these exams? They will be of various types. Let's say I can have a quiz someday online. So I will divide those 15 marks into small exams. I can have group assignments where 2 of you will present in the Google Meet. I can have a Wikipedia page where you can make a wiki page on some topics that I give you. Of course, I'll give you the details of all of those as we go on ahead with the class. I can also ask you to make websites for yourself and upload your data, then I can see them there. And also you can also suggest me if there are some other ways of doing your assignments as we go along in the classroom. So by today evening, I hope I will provide you with the course handouts. So I think that would be all from my side today. I would like to hear from all of you. What do you think about the course and what should be done and what should not be done? Any initial thoughts? Hello? Am I talking to
As of yet,
yeah.
we're here, sir. As of
Yeah,
yet,
yeah.
nothing. As of yet, maybe nothing, because we should first check what we have in the course, and then we can discuss it with you in the manner in which we'll proceed. Because as of now, since we have no idea what is to come, decisions cannot be
Absolutely. So let me ask one thing to you. You have started all other papers already in your Google Classroom?
except mass comm, sir. Everything else is started.
Yes. So how many papers do you have this semester?
7, I believe. 7 including, no, 7 or 6.
6 papers, including everything, including all your past.
We have 7, sir, including
CBCS.
including CBCT, yes.
Okay, so that's quite a big number of classes. Okay, so anyways, I have only 1 class. I'll try to keep it at a minimum. I won't be forcing too much things on you because it's a 2-credit course. I have to also understand your concerns because this is a pandemic time and I cannot force you to study so much, isn't it? But having said all of this, my concern is like these live classes, when I'm talking to this monitor, it becomes very problematic because I can't see your faces anyways, none of you. So most of my classes will be recorded. Okay, so that is something, please get used to it. I'll be uploading them on YouTube and I'll share with you the links. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It would be
Yes, sir.
like
Yes, sir.
Sir, it would be like far better if you uploaded on YouTube instead of like Google Drive or anything like other teachers have been doing.
No,
Like
no, no,
more
not Google
oriented
Drive. I'll do
towards-
it on YouTube. YouTube is because Google Drive will eat up a lot of your data. YouTube means you can stream it, right? So YouTube is always better. I'll do that on YouTube. Don't worry, I'll do that on YouTube. And please make sure that you watch. But I have no ways of ensuring that you watch it, right? So that is the one concern. So please make sure that you watch it because after all, it's your course. And so that's it for today. I think we will end it here, and I'll also share this today's class on YouTube and give you a link in the classroom. Okay, one more thing, that most important point. Your department would have had issued you Gmail tezu.ac.in email IDs. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have invited all of you. Have you received my invitation in that email?
Yes, sir.
So please
Yes, sir.
join through that. Please join this classroom through that invitation on your roll number @tezu.ac.in. And once you join, I will delete your personal Gmail IDs, because what happens is your personal Gmail IDs will always face issues because this is something that has been created for you for tezu.ac.in. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So all
Okay,
of you,
sir.
so it's confirmed you have got my invitation.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes,
So immediately, all of you please join through your roll number IDs. Okay.
Sir, my G Suite ID doesn't have your invitation.
What is your roll number?
Sir, EGI 19004.
Just a minute. Let me check.
So neither does mine.
What is your roll number? I have sent it.
EGI
It's showing invited. Huh?
EGI 19008.
Okay. So roll number 48. I will resend. Others, have you got?
Sir, mine too. EGI
Yes,
one,
sir.
EGI 19016.
6.
Sir, mine too.
16. I will send all of you the invite once more. Don't worry. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I'll send it immediately within 5
Like
minutes.
the invite that I received
Thank you,
was for my
sir.
personal Gmail, not for my Tezu account.
No, I have sent it in your Tezu ACs. All of
Sir,
you.
then
I'll send it again. I'll send it again. EGI, it's your roll numbers are like this, no? EGI 19001 @tezu.ac.in, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Like
sir.
that.
Yeah. So I'll do that. I'll do that again. Okay. So you'll get it within 5 minutes. Please, all of you join through that. Okay. So once you join, I'll delete your personal email IDs from here.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay then. Bye. See you and have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.